11 Spine-Chilling Motel Tales revealed. Terrifying experiences that will haunt your sleep tonight. Jake pulled into the Silver Creek Motel, an old relic on the outskirts of a small town. As he stepped out of the car, a cold shiver slithered down his spine. The neon sign buzzed erratically, its flickering illuminating the peeling paint, and he felt as if someone or something was watching. Freshly divorced and desperate to reclaim family moments, he just wanted a break from everything. He thought of his daughters, Lily and Emma, bubbling with excitement as they bounded toward the entrance. Inside, the air hung heavy with mustiness, the stale scent of neglect and something darker. The fluorescent lights buzzed, some barely flickering to life, casting an eerie glow over the hidden corners. Jake struggled with their bags, while laughter spilled from his daughter's lips until they stopped dead, their smiles evaporating as they stood before a crooked mirror. The glass, cracked like a spider's web, caught fragments of their blurred reflections. "Daddy, look!" Emma whispered, her eyes wide with a kind of fear that turned Jake's stomach. "It's just an old mirror. Let us focus on having fun," he replied, forcing a smile. But deep down, unease began to gnaw at him. Quiet whispers seeped through the thin wall from the room next door, a muffled exchange too intimate for the cold, lifeless motel. He felt a pit in his stomach grow heavier as darkness settled outside. The receptionist appeared, a middle-aged woman sporting a smile that didn't reach her eyes, her overly polite demeanor sending a chill through him. Her voice was saccharine as she handed him a key to the free breakfast room, almost lingering too long. "The family next door? They stay often," she added, a strange sweetness coating her words that made Jake's hands shake. He watched her, noticing her gaze uncomfortably fixated on Lily and Emma. Later, tucked into their room, Jake tried to distract himself. He laid the girls down, but unease clung to him like a second skin. He saw a journal peering out from beneath the bed, curiosity getting the best of him. Each entry told a terrifying tale of previous guests' voices echoing in the night, shadows creeping beyond mirrors, and a shuddering ending where every detail hinted about the neighbor taking care of you. Fear surged through him as he recalled the receptionist's smile. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." The air thickened around him, a weight of dread constraining his thoughts. The laughter from his daughters turned into an unsettling harmony, echoing oddly off the walls. He glanced at the door to their room, praying the shadows wouldn't creep too close. Images of the terrifying tales scrawled in the journal bubbled to the surface. Hadn't some of those who stayed here vanished without a trace? Jake's gut churned, adrenaline pumping through his veins. He needed to protect his girls. As he creaked the door open, the shadows outside felt like they were clawing toward him. He moved cautiously to the office, but once there, the receptionist's gaze trapped him. Her smile stiffened, and he knew he wasn't just in a rundown motel. Something sinister stirred, lurking beyond the flickering lights, and he could feel it tightening around him like a noose. The dread flooded back, and a question took root: were they safe anymore? Jake's heart pounded as he heard the eerie laughter grow louder, each girlish chuckle tinged with something he could not place. The horror of not knowing what was coming next surged within him, spinning a relentless web of fear as he stumbled back towards room 7. Shadows danced closer, and with every step, Jake realized safety had become a fleeting illusion in the grips of an unseen predator. Jake's heartbeat thundered in his ears as he staggered back into the room. The girls lay asleep, oblivious to the sinister weight of the night. He closed the door quietly and leaned against it, drawing in shaky breaths. A soft whisper broke the silence, barely audible, but it sent a jolt through his body. "Daddy," the voice was too faint, a phantom breath that seemed to curl around his heart. He turned quickly, dread climbing his spine. It came from the cracked mirror, the surface rippling like disturbed water. His daughter stirred slightly, but the laughter from before surged back clearer, pricking his skin with ice. "Lily? Emma?" he called, but they remained in dreamland, their faces serene, while the world around him dissolved into shadows. Hesitating, he stepped closer to the mirror. His reflection swirled unnaturally, warping, and when he peered deeper, he saw movement, a shadow whispering just out of focus, its shape living beyond the glass. A growl of static erupted, biting at his eardrums. The whisper became clearer, almost taunting, rising like smoke from the depths of some hidden horror. "Don't let them take you," the words sent tremors racing through him. He stumbled back, tripping over the edge of the bed, barely keeping himself upright. What had he brought his daughters into? Desperation clawed at him. He had to get them out. There was no reasoning with fear, only escape remained. Jake glanced at the suitcase piled by the door. But who could he trust? The receptionist? The family next door? As if conjured by his thoughts, laughter erupted again, a wild cacophony that buckled his knees. Looking outside, he saw the faint remains of gnarled figures moving in the flickering light, reminding him too much of silhouettes in a bad dream. He grabbed the suitcase and fumbled with the lock. For a moment, all clarity faded except for the urge to flee. Fear coursed through his veins as he glanced back at the mirror. Its surface was now an abyss, dark and deep. The girls would be frightened. They needed him now. Nervously, he shifted towards the door, the handle cold in his clammy palm. But doubt held him back. What if the nightmares lived beyond that door? Would running make it worse? A thought lingered. Almost palpable was he the monster hiding in their safety. In that moment, a shriek pierced through the silence. But it wasn't from his daughters. It came from the other room, a spine-chilling sound that rustled his bones. Adrenaline pushed him forward as he yanked the door open, but found himself bathed in darkness thicker than before. Jake leaned into the hallway, straining to listen. The air crackled with tension. A pounding heart and shallow breaths filled the silence. And then he saw at the door to the next room swung ajar, a sliver of ominous light bleeding into the corridor. Shadows shifted just beyond the threshold. "Help me," the voice echoed in the night, sending Jake racing up the hall, drawn like a moth to an abyss. Instinct urged him to turn away, to pull his daughters tight and forget everything, but curiosity clawed at him. What kind of horror was begging for rescue? With each hesitant step towards that open door, a choice crystallized: flee with his daughters or investigate this new terror. If something dwelled in the room next door, it was more than a simple case of bad luck, it was a malevolence that could destroy everything. As he stood before the door, adrenaline crashing through him, the laughter from his daughters reverberated in his mind, twisting like a knife. Should he save them or uncover the truth? But deep down, he felt the shadows closing in, like hungry jaws snapping at his heels. What awaited him in that unlit room? Jake hesitated at the threshold, breath caught in his throat. The dim light seeped from the ajar door, casting long shadows that danced like wraiths along the walls. Every instinct screamed for him to retreat, to slam the door shut and bolt for the stairs. Yet, the voice, a distant echo of desperation, held him captive. He had been a protector all his life, hadn't he? "Help me," the cry was softer now, more pleading. Jake felt the hairs on the back of his neck rise. Did he really want to know what lay behind that door? He thought of his daughters, safe in their slumber, their laughter still lingering in his ears. He clenched his fists. He couldn't abandon them, not when something so dark lingered nearby. Leaning closer, he peered inside. The room was barely illuminated, but he could see a figure crumpled on the floor. His heart raced. Was it a person or just a trick of the light? "Hello?" he called, his voice trembling. The figure twitched at the sound. "Please help." Jake steadied himself. He inhaled deeply, bracing for whatever nightmare might unfold. As he stepped over the threshold, the floor creaked beneath him, and the unsettling hush enveloped him. Just inside, the flickering light revealed a woman, her hair a tangled mess, clinging to the edges of sanity like sand slipping through fingers. "Please, it's in the wall," she rasped, terror glazing her eyes. "It won't let me go. It wants them." "Who? What do you mean?" Panic twisted his gut. He glanced back toward the room where his daughters slept, the laughter from earlier now an unsettling ghost. I tried to escape, but it knows. She clawed at the floor, as if searching for something that could save her. You must leave now. They'll take you too. A cold chill swept through him. The shadows seemed to pulse with an almost sentient hunger. The laughter echoed again, distant but growing closer, as if the very walls were alive with evil. The woman's eyes darted from Jake to the back of the room, where the darkness loomed thicker. They're waking up. Jake's thoughts spiraled. This was more than just a bad situation. This was a warning. Get up! He shouted, his fear morphing into a desperate urgency. We have to go. But just as he reached for her, the ground surged beneath him, and a violent tremor shook the room. The lights flickered, plunging them into darkness. A rumbling growl erupted from every direction, walls shuddered as if something ancient and furious stirred from its slumber. Please! The woman screamed, terror lacing her voice. Help me! Don't let it take you! A rush of air swept past them, slamming the door Jake had left open. The thud reverberated painfully in his chest. He whirled, eyes wide, heart racing. He was trapped. Shadows curled and twisted in on themselves, shapes forming into grotesque faces grinning in malice. The laughter returned, sharper, shriller, a wild cacophony that made his skin crawl. It was all around him. The urges to flee and to rescue fought a sickening battle within him. Everything inside him screamed to dash back to his daughters, but as he turned, he saw the mirror again, its surface rippling like a portal. The whispers intensified, beckoning him closer. Don't let them take you, they urged, each voice layering upon the other until it became a chilling chorus. He hesitated, torn between two horrors, fleeing to save himself or facing this malevolent urge that clawed at him from every direction. Then, out of the depths of the room, shadowy figures emerged, their forms flickering. They raised their fingers, pointing directly at him. Time distorted as the terror climaxed, and the woman stumbled toward him, her eyes reflecting pure fear. What comes next? She gasped, looking toward the mirror. Jake felt the walls closing in, shadows lurking, waiting. What awaited him in the darkness? He stepped back, caught between worlds, on the edge of choice, the very fabric of consciousness beginning to unravel. What awaited him plunged deeper into the murky unknown. The tremors subsided, but the air remained electric with tension. Jake's heart raced in his chest, a frantic drum urging him to choose. The mirror's whispers molded into a symphony of dread, each syllable scratching at his sanity. Help her, they seemed to hiss, but the shadows would not release their hold. Don't look at it! The woman screamed, her voice raw, panicked. They feed on your fear. Jake turned his head and shut his eyes tight. But he could still feel the weight of the darkness pressing around him, hot and suffocating. He focused on the woman, the flicker of her presence grounding him. I'm not leaving you! He shouted, his voice cracking, trying to stave off the terror that wrapped around him like a suffocating blanket. Suddenly, a chilling laugh erupted, a sound that sliced through the silence. It resonated in the walls, vibrating through his bones. Each laugh clawed at his resolve, a taunt that sent shivers up his spine. No! Jake bellowed, adrenaline fusing with his fear. He could see shapes moving, darting out of his peripheral vision, dark forms scrambling, tethered to a malevolent will. He reached for the woman, and the warmth of her trembling hand met his. I'll pull you up. You have to trust me. Her grip was weak yet desperate. As he yanked her to her feet, shadows swirled, their breath hot against his neck. He pulled her toward the door, but the sound of nails dragged along the floor echoed ominously. Something was crawling, inching upward from the darkness below. Jake, we have to get out, she urged, her voice rising in pitch as she tugged him back. He whipped around to face the mirror once more. It seemed alive, swirling with energy. Through the distorted surface, he could see flickers of his daughters, their faces bare of terror, unaware of the storm brewing just a floor away. Damn it, he muttered, torn between worlds. Please! The woman forced a laugh, a hollow echo, but the desperation clung to it like a cloud. They want them. They want you. They will take your soul. The laughter surged, filling every crevice of the room, growing heavier and darker. Shadows were pooling together, forming a massive figure tall, with eyes that glowed like burning coals. Jake's breath itched, his instincts screaming to flee. The woman stumbled backward, and terror ignited within him. "No!" he shouted, lunging toward her once again, but the ground beneath him felt treacherous, as if the floor itself wanted him to trip, to fall, to be consumed. The floor crumbled underfoot, splintering into jagged shards as the shadow surged closer. It raised a clawed hand, pointing ominously to the mirror, as if the dark form gloried in Jake's growing panic. Frantic, Jake pulled the woman closer, her fear infecting him, amplifying his own. They were both trapped. "Focus!" he yelled over the noise. "Look at me! Just hold on!" But the shadows danced hungrily, drawing nearer, the laughter now a collective roar, drowning out everything rational. His pulse thumped loudly in his ears, blending with the cacophony surrounding him. He glanced toward the mirror again, its surface rippling like blood, revealing fleeting images of a past full of those lost before him. Each face twisted in agony, a mockery of what awaited if he didn't escape this hell. "Help me!" the woman cried as her grip on his hand slipped, pulling her closer to whatever awaited in the void. "No! I will not let you go!" The darkness swallowed her scream, and in that moment, he felt a surge, an urge, a choice. He could dive into the mirror with her or try to outrun the horror encroaching on both of them. With every ounce of will he possessed, Jake made his choice, a heart-pounding gamble against fate. And then, the shadows lunged. Was it too late? Would he be lost to the darkness along with her? He closed his eyes, the weight of his decision heavy in his gut. What awaited them would change everything. Would they fight back, or fall forever into the abyss? The roar of darkness swallowed the room, a tidal wave of shadows crashing around him. Jake felt it clawing at his skin, pulling him, urging him to make his way into the depths of the mirror. The air thickened, turning stale in his lungs as he willed himself to fight back. "Jake!" The woman's voice was a faltering whisper now, panic lacing every syllable. He could feel her slipping, her fierce grip failing as the shadows tugged at her, as if she were made of smoke. "Hold on!" he shouted, desperation filling his tone like a lifeline, but doubt gnawed at him. What could he do against something so monstrous? Somewhere behind him, the collective laughter crescendoed, morphing into a chorus of despair, echoing memories, faces caught in the grip of terror. He squeezed his eyes shut, images flashing behind his eyelids, his daughters, their laughter, sunlight filling the house. He shoved those thoughts to the forefront, a fiery beacon illuminating the darkness. With a fierce grasp, he pulled the woman toward him, ignoring the swirling shadows that threatened to consume them whole. The air crackled with menace, and for a moment, their two hearts beat in tandem, two souls defiant against a ravenous tide. Then, a sudden shift. The floor beneath them creaked and buckled, splintering like dry wood. Panic flared within him, and he jerked his head back toward the mirror. The surface convulsed, and he caught glimpses of horrific figures clawing at the glass, their mouths stretching in grotesque, soundless screams. A wave of dread washed over him. They were not alone. "Jake!" The woman's voice rose again, frantic. "We need to move. Now!" She yanked him toward the door, an anchor in the storm. He took her lead, adrenaline coursing through him, propelling him toward the opening that felt impossibly far away. Each step was uncertain, every floorboard whispered treachery. But suddenly, the laughter intensified, a tidal surge crashing against his sanity. He spun back toward the mirror. The dark figure was now fully formed, looming impossibly tall, its eyes burning like the depths of hell itself. In a flash, the figure's clawed hand shot out, plunging toward him, dark mist trailing behind it like a sinister serpent. Jake could feel the cold wrap around him, icy fingers gripping his heart as he ducked away just in time, the hand grazing his shoulder, sending ice coursing through his veins. "Go!" the woman screamed, panic blending with fury. Jake felt it then, a flicker of strength igniting inside him. He turned and pressed on, pulling the woman along. She stumbled, but he was anchored in determination now. On the other side of the door, the hallway stretched before them long and dark, each flickering bulb casting eerie shadows that slithered along the walls. The mirror behind them pulsed as if alive, mocking their escape with each flicker of light. He gritted his teeth and pushed forward. They had to reach the end. He could almost hear the muffled cries of his daughters echoing beyond the door at the hallway's end, pulling him back toward what mattered most. "Jake, please," the woman whimpered, her breath quickening. "Don't look back." But the weight of the darkness was palpable, closing in fast. The laughter chased them, a relentless specter haunting their every step. Soon, caution shattered beneath the weight of their urgency. They burst through the door and into a different world. Moments later, Jake realized they were no longer in the motel. He felt the ground shift beneath him, sand, not concrete. A beach? There should be waves crashing, the smell of salt, but instead, it was a barren wasteland. The king of shadows was no longer behind them, but the horror of the mirror lingered, hovering in the shadows of his mind. "Jake, where are we?" the woman asked, panting, terror flickering like a candle in her eyes. Jake turned slowly, the reality of their situation dawning on him. This wasn't a mere escape. This felt like something far more sinister, a continuation of the nightmare. The sea stretched endlessly before them, with the sky a sickly shade of green, swirling ominously. In that moment, a thought lurked at the back of Jake's mind. This wasn't just survival anymore. They had been drawn into something much deeper, something waiting to unfold. What awaited at the end of this twisted path? And would they truly escape the horrors that hunted them, or was this merely another layer of their torment? As footsteps echoed behind them, familiar yet fraught with malice, Jake knew they weren't alone. And the shadows were merely the beginning. The wasteland stretched around them, unforgiving and bleak. It felt like a pause, a breath drawn too long, suspended in time. Jake's heart thundered in his chest as he scanned the horizon, the sickly green sky twisting into chaotic patterns. Each breath felt laborious and thick, almost as if the air itself weighed him down. "Jake, we need to move!" The woman's voice broke through the haze, snapping him back. He turned to her, seeing the panic written all over her face. They needed to leave this place, and fast. What had pulled them into this nightmare? He couldn't shake the feeling that something waited, lurking just beyond the shadows, its hunger palpable. The footsteps behind them were growing louder, pounding against the desolation like a drumbeat from hell. "Over there!" He pointed to a dilapidated shack just off the edge of the beach. The structure leaned dangerously, the door hanging ajar like a gaping mouth. "I don't like it," she whispered, dread creeping into her voice. "Neither do I, but it's better than standing around." He took a step, and the sand seemed to shift beneath him as if urging him to reconsider. But Jake pressed on, dragging the woman behind him. The closer they got, the more the shadows danced at the threshold of the shack. It was an unsettling sight, a mix of curiosity and horror. What lay inside? Or perhaps, what hungered outside? With a swift motion, he pushed the door open. It creaked on rusted hinges, protesting their intrusion. Inside, the darkness clung heavily to the walls, and an unnatural chill settled in the air. "Stay close," he urged, stepping into the unknown. They entered a room filled with remnants of a life long abandoned. Dusty furniture lay scattered, and a single flickering bulb cast ghastly shadows that twisted and writhed along the walls. The air was stale, smelling of mold and regret. "Look!" the woman gasped, pointing at a cracked mirror hanging on the opposite wall. It was a smaller version of the taunting reflection that had brought them here, but something was different. Instead of just darkness, images flickered across its surface, distorted faces, twisted and tormented, mouths moving soundlessly in a chorus of despair. Jake felt bile rise in his throat. "We have to break it!" Instinct screamed at him. The mirror was a door, and behind it lay the horrors that pursued them. It could also unleash them, she warned, her eyes betraying a mix of terror and fascination. But before he could reply, the footsteps behind them grew frantic. They turned to see a figure silhouetted in the doorway, its features obscured in the gloom. Shadows curled around its form, swirling like dark smoke. "Jake," the woman gasped, her voice trembling. The figure stepped forward, and a chill radiated through the room. Eyes glowed from the darkness, piercing through the haze. The laughter from the mirror echoed once more, merging with the sound of waves crashing, taunting them with their fear. "Why don't you join us?" The figure's voice slithered through the air, sweet yet sinister. It beckoned with dark allure, and for a moment, Jake felt an inexplicable pull. "No!" he shouted, pulling the woman back. "We're not going to be a part of this." He reached for the mirror, heart racing, his last chance. As his hand connected with its surface, a rush of images flooded his mind. Each vision tugged at his soul, memories of laughter, love, and warmth overshadowed by shadows and screams. It was a battle for his essence, and it felt like drowning. "Jake!" The woman's cry brought him back. But in that moment, he realized the figure was moving closer, a dark hunger growing in its eyes. With a burst of determination, he swung to face her. "We can't give in! We will fight!" Yet before they could react, the figure lunged, darkness spilling like ink into the room, swallowing the air. As shadows engulfed them, desperation surged, and for a fleeting moment, Jake glimpsed a path ahead. A way out of this nightmare, but at what cost? Would they break the cycle, or would they become part of the sinister tale forever told in whispers? Everything hung in the balance, and the chilling laughter lingered, a haunting reminder of the darkness they were quickening to confront. The darkness closed in, curling around them like a living thing. Jake's mind raced, each heartbeat ringing louder than the last. Shadows flickered, morphing into grotesque forms as the figure charged, its intentions clear. "Run!" he shouted, grabbing the woman's arm. He spun, pulling her away from the mirror, from the beckoning darkness. They stumbled backward through the maze of decaying furniture, scraping against rusted nails and splintered wood. The figure's laughter echoed, twisted and maddening, melding with the crackling light above them. Every flicker of the bulb seemed to amplify the chaos, casting monstrous shapes against the wall. The very air charged with malevolence, gripping their throats as they gasped for air. With heart-stopping urgency, Jake flung open a door at the rear of the shack, leading to a narrow staircase spiraling down into suffocating blackness. The girl hesitated, eyes wide with terror. "What if it follows us? If we stay here, we're dead," he shot back. With a firm grip, he pulled her into the descent. Each step echoed, a heartbeat in the silence. Whatever lurked above would soon discover they were gone. They reached the bottom, stepping into a damp cellar that smelled of wet earth and decay. Unlike the shack, this place felt eerily still, the kind of stillness that grates on the nerves. Shadows pooled in the corners like thick black syrup. Jake turned to find the woman trembling. "Do you think we escaped?" she whispered, her voice quaking. Before he could answer, a sound reverberated from above, a heavy thud followed by something dragging across the floor, sounding like fingernails against wood. His heart raced. They weren't safe yet. Without thinking, he grabbed a rusted pipe that lay on the ground. It felt substantial in his hands, but the comfort was fleeting. They needed to find a way out, and he knew the cellar might hold secrets. With cautious steps, they edged deeper into the darkness, eyes straining against the gloom. As they approached the far wall, they stumbled upon a small window barred and grimy, but they could see an outline of the outside world. The wasteland stretched vast and foreboding, the sickly green sky swirling like an angry sea. "Look," she pointed, her breath hitching. "There's a way out." But the momentary glimmer of hope vanished. A crack echoed above, followed by soft, scraping sounds. Something was trying to sneak down. The very air shimmered with a dreadful anticipation, wrapping around them like a cold embrace. Jake pressed closer to the window, hands gripping the bars. "We can break through," he urged, desperation tinging his voice. But his heart sank as he realized it wouldn't budge. The darkness deepened, shadows creeping closer, black tendrils reaching out like hands, hungry and impatient. "Jake, we can't just stand here." The woman pulled at him, eyes darting toward the stairs. "We have to." Before she could finish, the figure loomed at the top of the staircase. Its features became clearer, venomous eyes gleaming, a twisted grin stretching across dark lips that seemed to ripple in the dim light. "Did you think you could escape?" It hissed, voice rich with malice. You belong to me now. Jake's heart pounded in rhythm with the figure's approach, fear ripping through him. He turned to the woman, saw the terror reflected in her eyes, and felt anger surge. They couldn't let this creature take them. He surveyed the room quickly. A rusted lantern sat in the corner. He snatched it up, ignited it by striking the base against the concrete floor. Flame flickered to life, illuminating the cellar. For a moment, the shadows recoiled. Stay back! Jake shouted, holding the lantern high. The figure paused, momentarily taken aback by the light, but that moment faded. Foolish child, it said, lunging forward. With nowhere to run, Jake knew it was now or never. In a split second, he hurled the lantern at the wall next to the figure. Glass shattered, flames erupting like a vengeful spirit. Run! He yelled, grabbing the woman's hand. They bolted toward the opposite wall, limited by time and the rising heat. The figure shrieked, a sound like nails on chalk, consumed as the fire began its insatiable dance, hungry for shadows to feast upon. As they neared the far side of the room, the space around them ignited with chaos. Smoke billowed, choking them. Jake, we have to go. But then, the ground beneath them trembled, a crack splitting the floor. They looked down in horror as the darkness beneath twisted and swirled, revealing a gaping maw. Don't fight it, the figure's voice echoed through the smoke. It felt like the shadows were whispering directly into their minds, sweet promises gently tugging at their resolve. Jake's heart raced as he felt it, a moment of decision. To succumb or to fight. Together! He yelled, gripping her hand tighter. We fight it together! The crack widened, drawing them close, the hunger palpable. Above, flames licked further, sending embers flying. The visual faded, the room thick with smoke, the depths beneath beckoning. As they teetered on the edge, everything hinged on what lay beyond their choice. Would they plunge into the darkness or harness the last flicker of their strength? The question flickered through his thoughts as they stumbled, lost between shadow and flame, searching for the fragile thread of hope in a world undone. The ground groaned beneath them, the crack widening like a mouth eager to swallow its prey. Jake felt a pull, an insistent tug at his soul as the darkness called to him, promising reprieve from the chaos above. He stared into the abyss, that swirling mass threatening to engulf them both. Jake! The woman screamed, her voice shaky as she fought against the force drawing them downward. We can't give in! We have to think! Jake strained to keep his footing. The flames flickered less intensely as the darkness edged closer, wanting to snuff out their light. He remembered the lantern, its warmth, its glow. Trust me! He shouted over the roar of the fire, and her panicked breaths. On 3, we pull away! She nodded, her eyes shimmering with fear and determination. 1, 2, 3! With all his might, Jake pushed back, forcing their bodies away from the maw. But the ground rumbled again, and a shard of stone shot up, narrowly missing his leg. They were running out of time. The chaos seemed to deepen around them, shadows melding together, the figure's voice taunting from just above the cellar. This is your end. It mocked, laughter dripping with glee. They rushed to the far wall, adrenaline surging through Jake, steering them clear of the crack. The ferocity of the flames surged in tandem with their desperation. He swept his gaze around the cellar, searching for anything that could help them escape. Then, he spotted a hatch partially hidden under dirt and debris. Over there! Jake yelled, pulling the woman toward the jagged opening on the floor. As they approached, the air turned colder. An uncanny chill poured from the opening as if it were exhaling a breath of the dead. Shadows slid around the hatch, curling like smoke. Hurry! He urged. They began to dig at the debris, tossing pieces aside, rusted cans, shattered glass, damp wood, and the chill only intensified. Each second felt heavier, the oppressive weight of darkness pressing down on them. A shriek ripped through the cellar as the figure descended from the staircase. The maniacal glow in its eyes lit up the dark, a quick flash before it lunged forward, reaching for them with clawed hands. Jake felt time slow. He grabbed the woman's waist and drove toward the hatch. With a final shove, the debris crumbled away. They tumbled into the hatch, slipping down a narrow tunnel, its earth walls cold and rough against their skin. The tight passage seemed to stretch forever, the walls pulsing like a heartbeat. Silence clawed at them, swallowing their breaths as they crawled deeper into the void. Suddenly, the ground shook again, but this time, it felt different. The shadows seemed to writhe above them, confusion spreading among the lines of fear. They paused, hearts hammering. "Are we still being followed?" The woman gasped, glancing back, her face ghostly pale. Jake nodded hesitantly, then shook his head. "I don't know." He could hear the distant echoes of the figure above, the laughter warping through the tunnel, melding with their own fear. They pressed forward, each flickering moment filled with anticipation. The air felt charged, cracks of electricity snapping all around them. Suddenly, the tunnel widened into a vast open space, illuminated by an eerie, pale light. It felt surreal, almost dreamlike. Stalactites dripped from the ceiling, pooling on the ground like shiny black pools. "What is this place?" the woman whispered, mixing with horror. Before Jake could answer, a rush of wind swept through the chamber, chilling their bones. A shadow loomed at the entrance from which they came, filling the space with an overwhelming sense of dread. "Have you come to join me at last?" The voice echoed, richer and darker than before, weaving into their minds a sickly sweet invitation that made their skin crawl. Jake's heart was in his throat. He turned to the woman, her eyes wide with terror and desperation. We need to keep moving. There must be a way out," he insisted, but the cold seeping into his bones suggested there might be no escape from this realm. The figure stepped forward, shadow stretching like a predatory smile. "You can't outrun the inevitable, Jake. You think darkness can be escaped? You've only just begun to see what I can offer." And just as fear crested like a wave, Jake caught a glimpse of the wall behind the figure, crude paintings, shadows of the past, each telling a harrowing story of those who had come before them. It dawned on him. They needed to understand this place. As the figure advanced, Jake took a steadying breath and whispered to the woman, "If we don't find a way to confront it, we'll only become another story on these walls." The figure halted, eyes glinting with dark delight, and an unsettling smile spread across its lips. Then let the games begin. What choices would they make in this cursed realm? Would they confront the essence of their fears or succumb to the shadows that long for them? The figure loomed closer, a whisper of darkness wrapped around its form. Jake felt the air grow thick with despair as its breath melded with the fetid stench of the chamber. He resisted an urge to turn and flee, knowing there was nowhere left to run. "Before you perish, let me share the tales of this cursed place," it crooned, voice smooth yet edged with malice. The shadows flickered, almost vibrating with anticipation. "No tales, just an escape," Jake snapped, gripping the woman's hand tighter. Her fingers were cold and unyielding, as if she were slowly slipping away. With an exaggerated sigh, the figure spread its arms wide, as if inviting them to embrace their fate. All who enter become stories. They are woven into the very fabric of this realm, forever living, yet locked in torment. The woman shivered, her eyes darting between Jake and the oncoming darkness. What do we do?" Jake's mind raced. The crude paintings lined the walls, each one depicting tormented figures trapped in anguish. "We need to know their stories. Maybe then we can fight back." His voice trembled, but he forced himself to stand firm against the creeping dread. "Foolish boy," the figure replied, its voice like shards of glass dancing in the air. "You really think understanding will set you free?" Before Jake could retort, the shadows behind him surged forward. With a deafening roar, they morphed into twisted forms that seemed to pull at his very soul. He pulled the woman behind him, pushing her towards the far wall as he braced against the onslaught. "Focus!" he shouted, breath catching in his throat. "We need to look at the paintings." Each one showed moments of horror and despair, faces twisted in agony, pleading eyes staring out at him from within the dark canvas. It was as if they were begging for release. He stepped closer to one of the images, a married couple, their hands reaching out toward each other yet eternally separated. "They didn't succeed," he murmured, dread pooling in his stomach. "They didn't confront their fears." The figure laughed, deep and sinister, echoing through the chamber like thunder. Do you see it now? They chose ignorance over confrontation, and now they linger here, forever lost. Jake's heart raced. We can't let that happen to us. He had to act. We confronted together. With determination igniting within him, he turned to the woman, who was staring wide-eyed at the darkness swirling around them. Can you hear me? We have to fight this. We can't let it take us. Take us where? She whispered, her voice barely audible over the echoes of pain. To a place beyond this. Jake felt the power of their united fear, a force swirling within him. We have to face the truth of this place and derive strength from it. The laughter stopped abruptly, leaving an uncomfortable hush, thick as fog. The figure's delighted expression turned to one of confusion. You think strength can be drawn from despair? Yes. Jake shouted, firing back with unexpected ferocity. With a flick of its wrist, the figure summoned the shadows to coil around them like snakes. Then let us see whose truth prevails. A cold grip snatched at Jake's throat, but determination roared inside him. He broke free from the shadows incrementally, eyes locked on the painting of the couple. Listen! We're not just stories to be told. We are alive! He could feel the weight of their fears, the agony etched across the walls pulling at him, but now he felt the threads connecting him to the trapped souls. He reached out with an open palm, feeling the cold tremors in the air shift around him. The air began to crackle with energy as the shadows recoiled, hesitant against his newfound strength. What are you doing? The figure screeched, a jagged edge of fear slipping into its taunting voice. We're breaking the cycle, Jake shouted back, a fierce light igniting in his chest. But the figure only chuckled, and its voice slithered into the soul of the abyss. It's too late, boy. Darkness has a way of claiming what it desires in that instant. The ground quaked beneath them, the shapes of the trapped souls swirling in the air, their cries filling Jake's ears. Jake, the woman gasped, panic seeping back in as the walls began to pulse. The chamber felt like it was collapsing, and the shadows flooded toward them like a tidal wave. Stay with me, he barked, heart racing against the impending doom. They were all that stood against the darkness now, with a choice to make, and as the terror reached a suffocating crescendo, Jake could sense a truth going beyond comprehension, just out of reach. We need to break their hold. We must confront the darkness. The shadows swirled violently, veiling their forms, and all Jake could see was the darkness stretching endlessly, a desperate expanse that sought to consume them whole. But he couldn't back down now. The tales of those lost souls cried out within him, and just as despair began to grip him harder, he steeled his resolve. Together! He yelled one final time, and the darkness responded, almost eagerly, wrapping tighter, pulling them toward the eternal void. Would they find a way to confront their inner demons, or would they, too, fade into the shadows, their story just another chilling tale lost within? The chamber erupted in chaos, shadows roiling and grasping at their forms as if trying to seal them away in eternal night. Jake felt the darkness wrap around him like a living shroud, but the light within him flickered stubbornly, fueled by his desperate need to save not just himself, but the woman standing beside him. Together! He shouted, refusing to let the tightening grip of fear win. He felt her nod beside him, her resolve igniting alongside his. They stepped closer, their hands pressed together, pooling their strength. The shadows thrashed and writhed, a menacing roar of fury echoing around them, but Jake held fast to that flicker of light in his chest. Focus on their stories, he urged. He could feel the echoes of pain surrounding them, the souls trapped within whispering, begging for release. They're not just tales. They're lessons. The woman squeezed his hand, panic flaring in her eyes. What if we fail? We won T. We can't. We've seen the cost of giving in. He thought of the couple, forever apart in the painting. He would not let their fate nor the fate of his daughters become theirs. Suddenly, the figure, now a looming shadow with a predatory grin, lunged forward, its voice hissing through the room. You think you can outsmart me? You are nothing but pawns. But Jake felt a rush of power at that moment, like lightning cracking through the darkness. No more games. He screamed the words, summoning every ounce of courage as images rushed into his mind: his daughter's laughter, sunny afternoons, moments filled with love and warmth. Those memories surged through him like invincible armor against the evil that sought to consume them. The room trembled, the walls vibrating with the force of their determination. With a surge, Jake and the woman stepped toward the wall adorned with tortured faces. "We are alive!" he yelled, echoing their shared strength, and reached forward, pressing against the skin of the darkness. "Let us help you!" they both cried, their voices melding into one. The sharp edges of the shadows began to dull, hesitating before transitioning into soft tendrils that curled against their skin, not grasping but caressing, as if yearning for solace. The figure recoiled, its grin faltering for the first time. "You can't turn them against me." But every flicker of defiance pushed those whispers of despair back. "We release you!" Jake shouted, and the woman echoed, "We let you go!" The air erupted with a cacophony of anguish, a torrent as the trapped souls around them surged forth, their whispers transforming into cries of hope, desperate to break free from the bindings of their narratives. A brilliant light ignited in the chamber, overpowering the shadows, driving them away from their hearts. "Hold on!" he yelled, pulling the woman closer as luminescence enveloped them. The darkness shrieked, the shadows boiling and swirling like a swirling tempest, and then one final, deafening roar blasted through the room. "Let go!" Jake screamed, launching his hands toward the approaching figure. It twisted, momentarily faltering, and in that second of vulnerability, light swallowed it whole. The chamber erupted in blinding brilliance, the shadows collapsing in on themselves, twisting into nothingness. And then, unceremoniously, Jake and the woman were thrown backwards, tumbling through the air into a dazzling expanse of warmth and light. They landed with a thud on soft grass, the sun pouring down above them, vibrant against the clear blue sky. Jake sat up, alarmed and overwhelmed with disbelief. They had escaped. But a weight still lingered, an unfinished story demanding resolution. Where are we?" the woman asked, scanning the horizon, eyes wide with wonder and relief. I think Jake stood, feeling energy coursing through his veins. "I think this is a second chance." As they rose to their feet, he felt an unmistakable pull in his heart, a longing leading him back home. He glanced at the woman, their hands still linked. "Let us find a way back. There's so much we need to do." And with that, they set off toward the horizon, a world so bright, filled with vibrant colors and bursting with life. Beyond the fields and flowers lay the path home, waiting for them, as they began to understand the importance of confrontation, that every demon faced would lead to the light, and every fear embraced rekindled hope anew. As they walked, laughter echoed through the fields like a gentle breeze. That laughter stayed with them, guiding them under the skies rich with possibility. It was the laughter of two girls waiting at home, the laughter of lives waiting to be rewritten. Jake took a deep breath, the warmth of the sun illuminating his heart and soul, and he knew they would be okay. Thank you for joining us on this harrowing journey. If you enjoyed this conclusion, you need to subscribe now and hit that bell for all notifications so you won't miss any exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to show your support, and help us reach more passionate fans. We want to hear your thoughts. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this epic finish. Together, let us keep the story going.